Why is Akron football so bad? Is a question many have been asking for decades. A football program that has not found any consistent success since playing the national title at the Division II level in the 1970s. Their most impressive season at the FBS level? A 7-6 season that saw them win their only MAC championship. This is the story of Akron football, maybe the worst college football team at the Division I level. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know who you want me to cover in future videos in the comment section below. Now, I'm not making this video to dunk on Akron fans or rub salt into the wounds, but to drum up support to maybe turn this program around. Akron football dates back to 1891. They would actually win their first ever game over Western Reserve Academy 22-6 in Hudson, Ohio. Though that would be their only win of their inaugural season, a theme that would come to present itself throughout the history of the Zips program. John Heisman would lead the school to their first ever winning season, their first ever undefeated season, a season they beat Ohio State, a game he would also play quarterback in. Heisman would also invent the snap at what it was then known as Butchtell College. Ironically, or what could be a sneak peek to the future of what would become of Akron football, founder of the college, John Butchtell, was not a fan of Heisman and believed football was a barbaric sport. The school would change its name to Akron in 1913. Throughout the program's early history, there would be bright spots like Red Blair leading the team to a 9-1 record in 1929, 7-1 record in 1930, and 6-3 record in 1935, but for the most part, the program was mediocre. Kenneth Cochran would change the school's nickname from the Zippers to the Zips. Gordon Larson would find a ton of success at the school after serving as an assistant under Woody Hayes at Ohio State, go on to become the school's winningest head coach at the time, with a 74-33-5 record. He wouldn't hold that spot for long, as Jim Dennison would take over as head coach when Larson retired following the 1972 season. Dennison would lead Akron to their most success in program history. He spent 8 years as Larson's assistant and would coach the Zips for 13 years. In 1976, he would lead Akron to a 10-3 record and to the NCAA Division II championship game, where they would lose to Montana State 24-13. Dennison was not just named the Ohio Coach of the Year, but also the National Coach of the Year. He would help the Zips transition from the Division II level up to the Division I AA level, where they would join the Ohio Valley Conference, led them to the 1985 Division I AA playoffs with an 8-4 record. He would surpass his former mentor, finishing as the school's winningest head coach with an 80-62-2 record. Shockingly, school president William Muse would fire Dennison following the 85 season to bring in former Notre Dame head coach Gary Faust. This did not sit well with a lot of people in the college football world, and led to a handful of coaches to reevaluate their own careers. Rich Johanningmere led Southwest Missouri State up from the Division II level to the Division I AA level, and putting together a 58-44-5 record. After seeing what happened to Dennison, he would choose to retire as a coach at 43 and become an investigator for the Enforcement Division in the National Collegiate Athletic Association. He explained, "I knew Jim Dennison and was really impressed with him. I started to feel that no one had immunity in this profession." Bo Schembechler would come out and say the president should be the one who should be fired. Schembechler said, "The biggest problem with college athletics is the presidents like that. Anyone should be fired, it's that guy. You know what? He'll be there 2 or 3 years and leave the place in shambles and go somewhere else. Believe me, this guy Dennison is a widely respected coach. You know, it's the type of situation where they should be fighting to hold on to him, that he didn't get a better job." But what's the guy Muse say? "We want instant respectability. I've got to laugh at that. That guy shouldn't be president of a junior college." Muse explained the decision, saying, "We felt it was the best interest of the university and the football program. It's an opportunity for the university and for Dennison to move into the athletic administration." Faust was coming off a rough 4 years at Notre Dame, where he went 30-26-1, and his last game was routed by Miami 58-7. The administration felt Faust gave more credibility to the Zips program. They transitioned from the Division I A level in 1987. Then Dennison would have. Like he did at Notre Dame, Faust ran the Akron football program into the ground, only having 3 winning seasons during his tenure, and was fired in 1994 after a 1-10 season. He would go 43-53-3 as head coach and 14-18 in MAC conference play, the conference they would join in 1992. You almost have to wonder whether there was a curse left by Dennison, because since his firing, Akron has never had a coach leave the program with a winning record. They went from having their two winningest head coaches in program history, who went 154-95-7 over a 24-year span, to the next 24 years seeing the program go 113-156. Ohio State assistant Lee Owens would replace Faust, and he would lead Akron to a share of the MAC East Division title in 2000. Together 3 winning seasons, but after a 40-61 record, he would be fired, although his last season in 2003 would see the Zips finish 7-5. Athletic Director Mike Thomas told the media, "It is time to seek out new leadership that will accelerate our progress towards creating the outstanding program our university and our community deserves and will support." Owens would coach NFL Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, Super Bowl champion Dwight Smith, and probably the greatest quarterback in program history, Charlie Fry, who holds the record for career passing touchdowns and passing yards. Pitt offense coordinator J.D. Brookhart would be hired as the school's next head coach, and things would not start off pretty in 2004, based off a message board I found while working on this video, yet they would finish the season 6-5. 2005 would be the best season in program history at the Division I level. Though they would start the season off 0-2, losing to Kent State and number 10 Wisconsin, they would go on to win 5 of their next 6 games, and finish the year 7-5, winning the MAC Conference Championship, making it to the school's first ever bowl game in program history. In the Motor City Bowl, they would lose to Memphis 38-31. Things looked good for Akron, as they returned quarterback Luke Getsy for the 2006 season, but lost running back Brett Biggs. The floor would fall from under the Akron football program, as they would not have another winning season under Brookhart, and he would be fired following a 3-9 season in 2009. Under Brookhart, Akron would be stripped of the scholarships due to failing to comply with graduation rate policies. In his first 2 seasons at Akron, they went 13-11, while in his final 4 seasons they went 16-32, and he finished with a record of 29-43. They would replace Brookhart, Notre Dame assistant Rob Ianello, which would be an absolute disaster, as in both seasons they went 1-11, and he would be fired following an 0-8 record in MAC play in 2011. He would finish with a 2-22 record and a 1-15 conference record. Ianello would be informed of his firing over the phone while he was on his way to his mother's funeral, according to Bleacher Report. Patrick Clark from Bleacher Report wrote, "The way Akron handled his firing is more disgusting than the 2 wins in the 2 seasons. They should be punished by the NCAA. Ianello needed to be fired. He had to be fired. But no one should have to hear that news on the day of their mother's funeral, even if it was inevitable." During the 2011 season, Akron lost 7 games by 32 points or more, and in his last game they would lose 68-19 to Western Michigan. Their 2 wins came against Buffalo in 2010 and VMI in 2011. They lost to FCS Gardner-Webb in 2010. Akron would make headlines when they hired Terry Bowden, the son of legendary Florida State head coach Bobby Bowden, and brother of former Clemson head coach Tommy Bowden and Florida State offense coordinator Jeff Bowden. Bowden had led Auburn to a 47-17-1 record, including an 11-0 record in 1993, where they were ineligible for the postseason play, and after a 1-5 start in 1998, he would resign as head coach. When hired at Akron, he was coming off a 29-9 stint at North Alabama, where he led them to the Division II playoffs 3 straight years and the quarterfinals in 2009, when they went 11-2. Bowden spoke on being hired by Akron, saying, "I'm so excited to be at Zip. With the great resources and the commitment to winning by an administration and community, just a matter of time until we build a championship program." Bowden had worked as Akron's quarterback coach in 1986 under Faust. President Louis M. Proenza said, "We welcome Terry Bowden back to campus. He brings with him an outstanding record of success and a true football coaching pedigree. We know the entire Akron community will support Coach Bowden in his mission to cultivate a championship program here." Things would not start off great, as for the 3rd season in a row, Akron would go 1-11, for the 2nd season in a row went 0-8 in MAC conference play. They would finally snap their 19-game MAC conference losing streak when they beat Miami of Ohio 24-17 in 2013, and things began to look up as they finished 5-7. 2015 would end up being the school's best season in program history at the Division I level, as they would finish the year 8-5 and made their 2nd appearance in a bowl game. This time around, they beat Utah State 23-21 in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl to win their first bowl game in school history. The 2015 season would also be the school's first winning season since 2005. They make it back to a bowl game in 2017 and won their third East Division title, but they lost the MAC title game and their bowl to finish the year 7-7. In 2018, Akron would get their first win over a Big Ten opponent since they beat Ohio State in 1894, when they beat Northwestern 39-34 in comeback fashion. Perry said after the game, "It's only 1 week, but it's one of those after the year's over, Akron people will remember for a long time." Things started off great in 2018 as they were 2-0, then they found themselves sitting at 4-3. As when the rails would fall off as they would lose their last 5 games and Bowden would be relieved of his duties. Athletic Director Larry Williams said in a statement, "Certainly Terry and his staff have brought respectability to the program over the last 7 years. However, after undertaking a thorough review of the entire program, and in consultation with the university president and board of trustees, it's clear we need to make a change we're going to consistently achieve at an even higher level." While Bowden spoke on the situation, saying, "It saddens me that I will not be able to work through this with my coaches and players, but the university feels it is time to bring in new leadership and a new direction. I want to thank the University of Akron for giving me this opportunity." Bowden finished with a record of 35-52, which was the most wins by a coach since Lee Owens. Akron would replace Bowden with Chattanooga head coach Tom Arth. Arth had gone 40-8 at John Carroll, a Division III school, and only went 9-13 at Chattanooga. He played in the NFL, CFL, Arena League, and NFL Europe throughout his playing career, and was from the Cleveland, Ohio area. But looking at it back in hindsight, with hindsight being 2020, this move made no sense. Williams said in a statement, "Tom's experience in leading 2 programs, his ties to Northeast Ohio, his tremendous football IQ, and his passion for developing student athletes for the future endeavors made him the perfect candidate to elevate our program." The Arth hire would be an absolute disaster. Akron would finish the 2019 season 0-12, their first winless season in school history. They lost 10 games by double digits. One of the single-digit losses would be a 37-29 defeat to UMass. They lost to a terrible Rutgers team by 27, FCS Southern Illinois by 25, and a really bad UConn team by 21. The Zips were outscored 36-10 on the season and had their worst rushing offense with 48 yards per game and less than 2 yards per carry. They snapped their 21-game losing streak when they beat Bowling Green 31-3 in 2020, but finished the year 1-5. Following a 2-7 start, Arth was fired in 2021, finishing with a 3-24 record as Akron finished 2-10. It was one of their worst 3-year stretches in school history, next to their 3-33 stretch from 2010 to 2012. They would be saved by the shortened COVID season, going 3-27 from 2019 to 2021. The Arth hiring and firing was puzzling. School made headlines when they spent $1 million to fire Bowden, who had a $630,000 buyout, and had to buy out Arth's $370,000 contract at Chattanooga. This was all over a guy who went 9-13 at the FCS level and only had proven to be a winner at the Division III level. It was not like Chattanooga was even bad before Arth arrived. While under Russ Huesman, they went 59-37, won 3 conference titles, and went to the FCS playoffs 3 times. They were coming off a 9-4 season. Following Arth's departure, under Rusty White, they went 37-29 and bounced back to a 6-6 season in 2019. They basically bailed out Chattanooga for hiring a mediocre head coach. They brought an unproven coach and did not even save money on the move. To reduce the buyout for Arth at Chattanooga, Akron was even considering playing at the Mock Stadium. When Akron hired Joe Moorhead to be their 29th head coach, I thought it was a fantastic hire and someone who could turn their struggling football program around. Moorhead went 38-13 at Fordham, and then the 3 straight FCS playoff appearances, went 14-12 before being fired by Mississippi State. At the time, he was the offensive coordinator for Oregon. Moorhead helped Oregon make it to the Pac-12 title game in 2021 under head coach Mario Cristobal. If I had to guess, I had the option to coach at multiple schools. Family reasons played a significant role in Moorhead accepting the Akron job. Both he and his wife are from Pennsylvania, and their oldest son, Mason, was playing football at the Division III Grove City College, near the Pennsylvania-Ohio border. Moorhead said, "We can't wait to get back to the region of the country we consider home. Plan for the future is simple. We'll roll up our sleeves and get to work, diligently building a program of which the school, the city of Akron, and the state of Ohio can be proud. Go Zips." He was Akron's wide receiver coach in 2005, and their offense coordinator from 2006 to 2008. Coordinated a record-setting offense at Penn State in both 2016 and 2017. Moorhead took a pay cut going to Akron, and fans were pretty happy about the move. Through his first 2 seasons, though, they would go 4-20. Last year, they would have their best season since firing Bowden in 2018, going 4-8. This year's off to a rough start as they are already 0-3 after losing to Wyoming, Nebraska 68-0, ouch, and a heartbreaker to UAB 31-28. According to Phil Steele, they are projected to finish 10th in the MAC ahead of Ball State, Penn State, and UMass, but in MACtion, anything can happen. They're currently ranked in the Ryan McGee's bottom 10. So let's go back to the question I asked at the beginning of the video. Why is Akron football so bad? After tracking their history and looking into a few things, their athletic department is an absolute mess and a joke. Their athletic director and their school president believes the football team should be playing at a certain level, and when there is one little drop off, they make the most irrational decisions. Or they try to keep up with the Joneses. Unless Dennison wanted to give up coaching, there was no reason to fire him to bring in a former Notre Dame coach to win the press conference. They had things humming at a high level at the time, and were coming off a playoff appearance. Since then, the program has been a disaster. Who's to say whether they would have been successful at the 1A level under Dennison, but they didn't even give their winningest head coach a try. They instead tried to reinvent the friggin' wheel, which did not need to be reinvented. Now, I don't know how the sentiment was around the Bowden firing, but after he leads you to 2 bowl games in the MAC title game, with one down year they fire him and burn $630,000 they did not have, to hire an FCS coach who was 9-13. 9-13. You fire the only coach since the 90s that had found any consistent success at the school for a coach that would go 3-24. Then they have the scandal of the year, with not having a good enough APR rate to play in a bowl game, becoming the first school to receive a penalty for it in over a decade since Idaho in 2014. This year, not like they were going to make a bowl game anyways, it's just embarrassing, all while the school's athletic department continues to bleed money. In 2015, the school cut 215 staff positions and its baseball program, led to faculty members speaking out against the university's annual $8 million commitment to the football program, as they continue to have one of, if not the lowest attendance in college football at the FBS level. William Rich, the university's faculty senate chair, noted at the time how difficult it was for people who made the decision to invest so much money into the new stadium to then acknowledge that it was a mistake. Then even more cuts came in 2020, brought up the question on whether Akron should drop down or even cut the football program. Peter Patikos wrote back in May of 2020, the height of COVID, "There's no reason that the University of Akron can't sustain a downscaled football program that the students and community can be proud of, as opposed to the current arrangement where these kids serve mainly as a grist for the televised football industry complex. In what new university president Gary Miller has called a defining moment in the history of the university, requiring rapid, positive, and dramatic change, pursuing reform on this front should be an easy call, especially with so many other struggling FBS programs with the incentive to do the same." This video for me started as a wanting to look back at Akron football's program and highlight some of their success they have found historically. As I went on, I just became annoyed with the decision making by the school and the administration. It's heartbreaking to see a program in this bad of a place, and if Joe Moorhead can't turn things around, I don't know how sustainable the program is for the foreseeable future. I also don't know if Akron has gotten their financial situation sorted out either. What most likely is going to happen is Moorhead will lead them to a bowl game, then have a down season where they'll go 5-7, and the school will overreact and fire him to replace him with some mediocre coaching candidate or some old big name to win the press conference. But what do I know? I'm just some YouTuber. What do you think? Can Akron football be turned around? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos. YouTube thinks you will love right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.